And we're recording. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to RIGEN. My name is Valerie Nye. I'm the library director here at Santa Fe Community College, and I am delighted to have you all with us here for the second gathering of our Fall 2025 series. As many of you know, last week we had the privilege of hearing Chip Livingston read from his work, which gave us a really great glimpse into his voice and the vision he has as a writer. Tonight, we are going to shift to the other half of what makes RIGEN so special, and that's a chance for us to write together. These are creative sessions, and they're about energy, inspiration, and exploration. They're a chance for us to try new prompts and approaches to the way we write and think. We'll have the opportunity to explore our imagination and look at words on the page. So, as many of you know, RIGEN is short for Writing Generation, and that is at the heart of what we're going to do this evening. I also wanted to take a moment to thank the Santa Fe Community College Marketing and Public Relations Department. This series wouldn't be possible without their support. In particular, I want to thank Emily Drabansky, who's here this evening. Hi, Emily, it's good to see you. And Roxanne Tapia for all of their efforts that allow us to get people to come to this reading and allow us to distribute the videos for it afterwards. I will send out a calendar invite again through email, but our next reading will be September 17th. And I will send out a Zoom link and information about that as time gets closer. And finally, I'd like to once again thank my colleague, Austin Eichelberger from SFCC's Creative Writing Department for co-hosting this series with me. Hey, Austin. Austin brings a wealth of creative insight and teaching experience, and I'm grateful for the perspective he adds to every session. So now I'll turn things over to Austin, and he can introduce our writer this evening.
I thought I came up with a clever solution and it wasn't as clever as I thought it was. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. This creative session is brought to you by the Santa Fe Community College Library and Creative Writing Program. We're thrilled to have you join us tonight for this special reading event, and we hope you'll come back to celebrate the power of words and storytelling at our future events. Tonight's gathering is an invitation to those who have passion for the written word. If you've ever dreamed of becoming a writer, whether you'd like to craft compelling fiction, pen evocative poetry, or explore the world of nonfiction, SFCC is awaiting your arrival. In our program, students can earn a certificate or an associate's degree in English language creative writing. The Santa Fe Community College Creative Writing Program nurtures aspiring writers, providing them with the tools, guidance, and inspiration to take their creative endeavors to new heights. We believe that writing is not only a useful and practical skill, but an art form that has the potential to transform lives and connect people across time and space. Upon completion, you'll have gained the skills and experience to submit a manuscript for publication, pursue a career in editing, or continue your studies in creative writing. You can also now complete the entire program online. So please see the chat for links to our program website, where you can see our course offerings for spring 2026, explore the program requirements, find information about the Santa Fe Literary Review, and the Kate Besser Awards, which are SFCC's very own writing awards, and the Santa Fe Literary Review is our in-print literary journal. For those of you considering your own creative writing journey, we encourage you to ask any questions you have about the program. Whether you're an experienced writer looking to take a single course or a complete novice ready to explore your creative potential, we have classes and resources for you. In Santa Fe Community College's creative writing program, we believe that everyone has a story and every story is worth sharing. Tell us yours. Tonight, we are welcoming back a favorite of mine, Chip Livingston. Chip is the Mixed Blood Creek author of 6 books, including 3 collections of poetry, a novel, a nonfiction children's book, and a story and essay collection. He is the editor of Love Lucia, The Letters of Lucia Berlin, and Kenward Elmslie. His work has appeared in Ploughshares, Prairie Schooner, and Poem a Day, and he teaches in the MFA program at the Institute of American Indian Arts. Without any more ado, let's welcome Chip.
Hey everyone, thank you Austin, and thank you Val. Thanks everybody for coming back or for coming the first time. like I said last week, I'm really, really happy to be here with you, and I'm grateful to Val and Austin for inviting me, and for you all for attending and, giving this time and attention to thinking about writing and doing some writing. So last week, I read to you all from my work, and based on some of that, I wanted to, give us some ideas and some prompts for you all to do some writing of your own tonight. I, for those, who were there last week, you'll remember maybe, how I introduced Uruguay, the country where I live, to you in that final piece, that had, the long alphabetical, and then the reverse alphabetical, because I have so many things I love. I couldn't just use the alphabet once. But how so much of that introduction, or that, like presentation of my life in Uruguay, was through food. The, aspect of the asado here, in which there's so many different types of meat, and how pure I found the food the first time I got here, and still do, 16 years later. And how, like, it's astonishing to me that in the 1970s, over 50 years ago, Uruguay had the sense to ban pesticides and transmodification of any foods, hormones in animals. And so we had, everything's organic. There's not a little section for organic, because that's the food is the food as it was. And what a difference that makes in the way, like I said in that piece, the way a tomato tastes, or the fact that, every time I eat a banana, I'm sort of surprised that I look down and I see the little black dots in the circle that are the banana seeds, which you almost never see in other places, because the bananas are, transgenically modified. But anyway, not to go on and on more about the food in Uruguay, but, just the way that I was hoping to, represent some of this setting, the characters who live here, me, as a resident, through the experience of food. And so I thought that we could take a look at food and our relationships to food, our memories of food, our rituals around food, as a way to start off tonight. And I'm going to share my slides. So I think it'll be easier to follow along. And then if there are questions, one can stop me, you can stop me. And then there will be, times for perhaps a little bit of discussion as we go through this, and certainly time for writing. If you haven't got your pen and paper or your computer document open, you'll want to do that, because, like Val said, and the introduction to this week's session of the Write Gen course mostly will be writing, though I'll be talking and guiding you through some of that writing, as I said. Okay, I trust you can see that screen. It says food whets readers' appetites. And first, before I even give you any introduction to some of the things some authors have said about food and how they use it, I thought we would just start immediately with just some writing. And in this circumstance, you're just writing, filling out a list. So you don't have to get too elaborate. I'm going to give you time to expand upon items that perhaps you are called to give more attention. So these are some writing prompts that came from a magazine that's now defunct called Entropy, but they had a section called Entropy Dinner Time, in which they had writers write about food. You can jot down your just immediate responses in your own way you would answer this question. Or if you're working on fiction, you might consider your protagonist or one of your other fictional characters and how they might answer this list. So what is your or your character's favorite all-time meal or all-time favorite meal? What is your go-to snack between meals? Or what would your character reach for or seek out? What are your or your character's food quirks or idiosyncrasies or specificities? Maybe it's a combination of something that you eat that other people found strange, or just a habit you have in the way you eat. You know, when I was a child, I always separated all the items of my food on my plate so nothing touched each other. Now I like to mix everything together. What was your most memorable meal? What's your most memorable dinner party, either as a host or a guest? What are your breakfast habits or those of your character? What would be your final meal request? Which is morbid to think about literally, but telling, you know, in theory, if we knew we could order anything in the world, but it would be the last thing we were going to eat, what would that be and why? This is a question that Entropy magazine asked all of its authors that it interviewed for that section. And if that's too morbid, think about, you know, if you were going on a long vacation or moving to a place where you know, we're no longer going to have your favorite blank or, you know, what would be that ideal last meal? What is your comfort food? What food makes you feel good? Or what's the food you make for other people to make them feel good? A meal that you would prepare for a guest. And of course, it would depend on who the guest was. Probably. Yeah, I have a short story set in Argentina during the dictatorship, in which I have a character, a woman is a very important person is going to come to lunch, a pastor or a bishop of the church, actually. And so she goes through the, you know, the plot of, you know, like bartering, trading something with a neighbor for a chicken, killing the chicken, plucking the chicken, cooking the chicken. And then the pastor arrives and says he doesn't eat chicken. And it was based on a true story that a friend told me. And a meal out that you would invite a guest to. If you were to take a friend visiting your town, or a date, or a relative, or a client out to a restaurant, where would you take them? And what plate would you recommend they order? And think about your answers to these questions. Now I'm going to give you 5 minutes to just sort of think about these categories, think about your answers, add to them, make additional notes for each category if you can. If you're talking about a meal, try to remember the exact flavors in the sauce or spices that were distinguishable. Try to remember the combination that went with it. What emotions do you associate with those meals? Was it the food, the ingredients, the atmosphere, the company? What was contributing to make these meals or foods stand out in your memories? And so I'll give you 5 minutes. And like I said, just expand the list for now, and then I'll ask you to do something else with it. But 5 minutes just to sort of fill out some of the memories or details. And I'll interrupt you just for a second. You don't have to stop writing. I'm just going to give you the second part of the prompt in case you are being called by any of those food memories, or thinking about those foods, because the next step, and I'll add 10 minutes, is going to be to take one of those foods or memories you identified and to write about the food in a scene, or to start a poem that features it.
What?
There's 1 minute left. Okay, time's up for this part. Um, last week um, well, nothing about last week right now. I think about my favorite meals a lot. I rank them. And of my top 10 favorite meals of my all time, 6 of them have been in Uruguay. My all-time favorite meal you can see here is Corbina Negra, which is black drum in English. And this is a restaurant out on the beach in Jose Ignacio, Uruguay. Um, since you've it made me think of my favorite food, those questions. And I'm actually thinking about food a lot because I'm hungry and I'll order something when this is over. But that's another thing about Uruguay and the culture here. We don't have dinner until 10 p.m. So when I finish this class, it'll be 10 p.m. I'll get on my phone app and I'll be able to order from any of the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of restaurants in the city and have it delivered really quickly. Restaurants don't even open until 8 p.m. here, and they're not ready to serve food at 8 p.m. That means that's what time the staff showed up and they unlocked the door and started the fire in the oven. But as you know, I'll talk about a little bit is, we learn a lot about a place through its food and its eating habits. Louise Miller, the author of The Late Bloomers Club, said, "Food is the great equalizer. Everyone eats. And what we eat and how we eat it can be so emotional and carry deep meaning." I mentioned, that one poem that I wrote called How Is It last week about my first trip to Uruguay when I, stopped with friends to go to this to get on the dune buggies to go out to this beach. And we parked the car, and as soon as I opened the car door, I smelled fry bread. And I was like, how can I be smelling fry bread? This is something only Indians eat in the United States. And then not only was I smelling real actual fry bread, which they call torta frita here, but my friend, who you can see there in the red t-shirt, his grandparents were there out of the blue. They were at the stand buying fry bread, buying tortas fritas, and so they bought some for us and sent it. There's a plastic bag in his hand of the fry bread that we're gonna go eat on the beach. But my connection to even that whole trip, and that specifically that day, isn't about the sea lions or the seals or the town without electricity, and the architecture out there. it's about the smell. It's about parking the car and getting out, opening the car door and smelling fry bread and being like, how can your grandparents and my grandparents feed us the same thing? And we're so far away. Part two of the first prompt, another list. And this is a little bit more, this is just a little different twist on answering the questions. Um, what do you eat to remember? The other thing about tortas fritas in Uruguay is they have a habit of eating tortas fritas when it rains. So you saw in that picture, there's like food trucks and that just sell tortas fritas. And when it rains, there will be like a line of people with their umbrellas. Also, gnocchis. We eat gnocchis on the 29th of every month, the gnocchi pasta because still people get paid once a month in Uruguay, and at the end of the month, you're short on money. So in the old days, people were just making pasta out of potatoes because they had no more harina, they had no more flour. So they made, they were making it stretch with the gnocchis. And so the tradition still is to eat gnocchis on the 29th because of that tradition. What do you eat to forget? Which food is your enemy? However you want to think of that, like coriander makes my mouth break out in blisters. But I can eat the leaf, the cilantro, but the seed is my enemy, unfortunately. What food or which food is a symbol of your childhood? And again, these can be applied to fictional characters if you're working in fiction. What must you or your character consume in a ritualized manner? Which food have you forbidden yourself from eating and why? Which food defines you? What do you eat to bring up bittersweet memories? What do you eat too much of every time? Uh-oh. 10, which food gives you the strength to go on? And you can add to that as I keep talking, if you like. The first time I gave you that list and then the time to write, I didn't want to give you sort of any examples of how other people have done it, because I wanted just to see what those memories evoked and, provoked in you. But I do want to give you a little context for, the reasoning behind this. And these prompts that I have on the slide here come from Diane Jacobs' blog, Will Write for Food. Pursue your passion and bring home the dough, writing recipes, cookbooks, blogs, and more. A book on, how one can use their passion and love for food and writing to work in that particular area. But science fiction and fantasy writer Melinda Lowe has spoken at length about world building, and she and others have narrowed down the principles to representing characters, setting, and community on the page to 5 basic elements: rules, rituals, power, place, and food. Lowe wrote, "Food does more than just taste good. In fiction, it can tell a complicated story involving ritual, power, and place, which makes food an excellent shorthand for world building." She wrote, "Consider this. 2 characters are going out on a date. Where do they go on the date? A nice restaurant or a fast food chain? What kind of food do they eat? Do they like it? Who pays?" So much could be told through a meal. Through this kind of scene, you get to learn what tastes a character has, which reveals their upbringing and some of who they are, whether they have an adventurous palate. You learn about power dynamics when between two people when the discussion about who pays arises. And you also learn about the food in that world when you describe it. William Carlos Williams, in his poem, This Is Just to Say, wrote, "I have eaten the plums that were in the icebox, and which you were probably saving for breakfast. Forgive me, they were delicious, so sweet, and so cold." The Poetry Foundation on its website actually has a whole collection of poetry and food. And just so you can sort of see the range that poets have taken on this, broad topic of food and the way that the Poetry Foundation narrows it down, we'll just look at some of the titles here in the sections. They have a section on planting and harvesting, which includes poems about the raspberry room, the rice fields, oystering, September tomatoes. I see a lot of social media folks posting August tomatoes right now, and what they're doing with their harvest. They have a section on eating with family, divorced fathers and pizza crusts, honorary Jew, family reunion, frying trout while drunk, going home, New Orleans. I think for many people, just the name New Orleans evokes, ideas of food, associated with that place. There's a section on eating with ghosts that has pieces like The Emperor of Ice Cream, Butter, a supermarket in California, In the Kitchen. There's a section on hunger and discipline, a section on comfort food, a section on food and love, eating for sustenance and survival, and a section on indulgences, as one might imagine. Or I imagine anyway. In one of those poems about restriction, Dorothy Grossman wrote this poem, I Allow Myself. I allow myself the luxury of breakfast. I am no nun for Christ's sake. Charmed as I am by the sputter of bacon and the eye-opening properties of eggs, it's the coffee that's really sacramental. In the old days, I spread fires and floods and pestilence on my toast. Nowadays, I'm more selective. I only read my horoscope by the quiet glow of the marmalade. Author of Vintage, David Baker, said, a dish is a story. It's the story of the culture that created it, the person who made it, the ingredients and where they're from, the tale of the meal's creation, successful or otherwise, because maybe some of your memories, some of my biggest memories are about meals that failed, especially when I was the one preparing it. Or not necessarily failed, but didn't go the way I planned. Baker says the whole process is a form of narrative. Whitney Sharer said, food seems like another way to understand overall hungers. We talk about plot being based on desire. There's a lot of ways we can represent desire, even if it's not, literal. We can use food and hunger as a metaphor for places where our characters or our speakers are feeling hungry for something, not necessarily food. Charlie Holmberg said, in writing, I think food is an excellent method of transportation. If I were to detail a table setting with food you've never heard of, but I describe a flaky crust, the way a gelatin gives underneath a knife, and the smell of burnt sugar, you are there. You smell and taste and see that meal. It gives a story, ancient magical tales included, a sense of realness. So now I was going to give you, 10 more minutes to, again, like we did the first time, think about your answers to these questions or those questions. If you need to fill in some of the details, use some of the time for that too. But try to bring that food or that memory of the food, or maybe it wasn't the food as much as the, ambiance of the dinner or the meal. Try to bring that into a scene or into a poem. And I'll put the timer on for 10 more minutes. I'm actually going to interrupt you because I didn't realize there's only 6 minutes left in the class. And there's 6 minutes left on my timer. So I'm going to interrupt you, unfortunately, because I didn't realize the time. I don't know why I didn't realize the time because I'm looking at the clock throughout, but it escaped me. But you can, of course, as you know, and hopefully you will, and hopefully you have the practice of doing, carry on what your ideas are and, continue writing this after the class is over, or throughout the week, etc. I did just want to just show you a few more examples of some pieces that feature food, that, of course, as a way that you can think about how you might feature food. And for example, Patricia Smith's poem, When the Burning Begins, it's a recipe. You can write a poem that's a recipe. This one starts, the recipe for hot water cornbread is simple. Cornmeal, hot water, mixed till sluggish. And it goes on. And recounts, moments when this meal was made, when this dish was made. But it's a recipe. The novel by Laura Esquivel, Like Water for Chocolate, every chapter began with a recipe, an actual recipe that the reader could attempt to make. A novel in monthly installments with recipes, romances, and home remedies. Roxane Gay wrote, a best-selling memoir called Hunger. Here I offer my story with a memoir of my body and my hunger. This was just a piece, one of my favorite pieces. I'll share it with you. One of my favorite Uruguayan writers, Leo Maslia. He's best known as a musician, classical musician, but he wrote this piece that I translated called Alternative Diet that, I just find delightful, and I'll share it with you as part of the way I close. Alternative diet. Many people ask me how I keep in such good shape at my advanced age. Well, the secret is in my diet. I don't eat beef nor horse meat, not because I'm vegetarian or vegan. I don't eat vegetarian animals. I eat animals, yes, but only those that eat other animals. It's my form of revenge. I eat the wildcats that eat the deer, for example. But the deer, which are herbivores, I don't touch them, unless it's with affection. I feed on wolves, moose, boa constrictors, crocodiles, chickens, and roosters that eat the poor worms, spiders, pumas, jaguars, leopards, pelicans, bears, seals, muskrats, and piranha. Hyenas and vultures, no, because they have a flavor of rotten meat because of what they have eaten. And the only vegetables that pass through my teeth are carnivorous plants. This system of eating is what has allowed me to preserve myself so well up to now, and it might serve me a few more years, not because of my policy to only eat animals who eat other animals, but because I've come to realize I must eat myself. Not totally yet, but I'm on the way to it. I don't know if I can do it, but so far I've eaten an arm and a leg. I'll keep going, and my plan is to leave the mouth and stomach for last because they will allow me to eat the rest. I'm not going to leave any remains. I don't want to contaminate the environment. I plan to do a good job, all natural. And George Bernard Shaw said, there is no love sincerer than the love of food. And those are three of my other photos of my more favorite food. That one on the right is this pineapple ceviche with ice cream on top and anise seeds. The one on the left is golfeado, which is like a cinnamon roll, but with anise and cheese, that white stuff's cheese on top. And my favorite fruit of all time is watermelon. And I have so many memories of growing watermelons with my grandfather And yet, when I think of watermelon, the immediate memory is one time with, my best friend in 6th grade going on the river to spend the day on the river with my dad, and my dad like saying to my friend, "You like watermelon?" and smashing the watermelon in my friend's face, and my friend getting a bloody nose and like crying. And I'm like, my dad just abused my friend and we're on the river. No one can call for help. But that's the memory, that comes back when I think about watermelon, even though, it's only for a second, but I always think about it. Oh, I didn't stop the share. Did I stop the share? Oh, I did stop the share. Okay. I was like, all right. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Chip. This has been wonderful. And leaving us room to write more tonight or later this week is perfect.
Thanks. I'm hungry. Now I'm gonna
Me
decide what I'm gonna eat.
Well, thank you all very much. Thank you, Chip. Thank you all for coming, and we'll look forward to seeing you on September 17th.
Thanks for having me so long.
Thanks for being here,
Bye.
Chip. It was great.